As soon as the new data leaked, the world noticed. Pilgrimage bookings to Jerusalem jumped almost overnight. Prophecy groups began live-stream prayer gatherings. Forums filled with debates, some calling it a sign, others calling it a warning. Even people who never followed prophecy were drawn in by the strange pattern no scientist could explain. Eyewitness video spread fast, stones shifting in soft waves, dust falling from old cracks, animals refusing to cross certain paths. 3 major news outlets asked for interviews, but officials declined every request. Still, the silence only made the story bigger. Everyone wanted to know the same thing. Why was the Mount of Olives pulsing like a living thing? And why was the countdown speeding up? The answer came from the next radar sweep. Ground-penetrating radar had already confirmed the old chamber buried about 30 feet down, but on the newest scan, that chamber was no longer the same shape. A dark space, once sealed by solid rock, had begun to widen. Not from collapse, not from erosion. It was opening, slowly, purposefully. Fractures spread outward like a web, following the same east-west line witnesses kept describing. The void expanded by several inches in less than a day, something geologists called impossible for stable rock. Even more unsettling, the chamber's edges showed signs of pressure pushing from the inside, as if something beneath the mountain was moving into place. Dr. Hoffman double-checked the data, then checked again. Because if the pressure kept building, the mountain wasn't just shifting, it was preparing. Just hours ago, the readings shifted again. The pulses, once steady at 10 minutes, suddenly tightened, 9 minutes, then 8. The seismic team didn't issue a public warning, only an internal alert marked urgent. At the same time, the thermal signature under the mount doubled, as if whatever was beneath the rock was drawing in heat, building pressure, preparing for something none of the models could predict. Authorities gathered for an unannounced meeting. Roads near the mount saw quiet patrols, and 3 senior rabbis requested immediate access to confirm what they called a prophetic marker. Their request was denied, not for religious reasons, but for safety. Because on the last radar sweep of the day, the chamber beneath the Mount of Olives changed again. The void didn't just grow, it shifted, forming a new shape, one that followed the fault line so precisely it looked intentional. Scientists don't have a name for what they're seeing. Officials won't comment. Witnesses are returning at the same hour each day, waiting for the next pulse. And if the countdown continues, the next one won't be like the others. When the fractures showed up on ground-penetrating radar, Dr. Hoffman compared them to old geological maps. The cracks weren't spreading randomly. They were moving in a straight line, east to west, the exact direction of the ancient fault beneath the Mount of Olives. It caught the attention of researchers, but it caught the attention of local rabbis even faster. In the book of Zechariah, that same line is described as the place where the mountain will split in the final days. Not explode, not collapse. Split open, like something revealing itself from inside. The steady pulses matched that picture more than any earthquake model ever recorded. Even the timing, 3:47 p.m., lined up with the ancient hour of evening sacrifice. But the most unsettling part wasn't the prophecy. It was what eyewitnesses saw next. As more witnesses stepped forward, officials tried to calm the growing noise online. The Israeli Geological Survey released a short statement calling the pulses minor seismic activity. But the internal memo told a different story. Anomalous pattern, no known geological precedent. Behind closed doors, emergency protocols were reviewed. Quiet meetings began between regional authorities. Jordan requested updates. The Vatican sent observers but made no public comment. Even local police were told to limit access to certain areas of the mount for safety checks. Meanwhile, store owners near the main path said the ground felt warm at odd moments. A vendor who'd worked there for decades said it sounded like the mountain was breathing. His nephew laughed until he heard it too. And then, without warning, the pattern began to speed up again. Late last night, the seismic team sent out an alert. the interval had dropped again from 12 minutes to 11. By morning, it hit 10. No earthquake behaves like this. Natural pressure releases get weaker, not stronger. They don't speed up on a perfect countdown. And they definitely don't heat the ground in matching pulses. The latest thermal scan showed the warm zone under the Mount of Olives rising and falling in sync with every tremor, like a slow heartbeat deep in the rock. Scientists tried to explain it with water movement, collapsing caves, anything, but the energy signature didn't match any known process. Something underground was pushing upward, steady, rhythmic, growing stronger by the hour. And then the next scan revealed a change no one expected. For 5 days now, the Mount of Olives has repeated the same strange pattern. At the same hour each afternoon, a slow vibration rises from deep underground, steady, controlled, almost intentional. People standing on the path say they feel a warmth move through the stone, like a heartbeat pushing up toward the surface. Scientists check the fault lines. Nothing matched. Religious leaders checked the ancient texts. One detail did. The tremors follow the same east-west line written thousands of years ago. And today, something new appeared beneath the ground. Before we continue, subscribe for more discoveries where faith meets archaeology. And don't forget to turn on notifications for our next revelation from the Holy Land. The first signs came quietly. A rabbi leading morning prayers noticed dust falling from a crack that hadn't been there the night before. He ignored it. Old stone shifts all the time. But then more reports surfaced. A tour guide felt the ground pulse beneath her feet while leading a group of 27 travelers. No shaking, just a slow push from below. A geology student from Belgium timed it. 12 minutes later, it happened again. Even the small stones along the walkway began to move in a soft rhythm, as if something beneath the surface was breathing. Dogs refused to walk near certain spots. Shop owners said items slipped from shelves with no wind, no footsteps, no warning. And then, at 3:47 p.m., everyone felt it at once. But that wasn't the part that scared the scientists. When the reports first reached the local monitoring stations, experts expected to see random noise. Maybe trucks, maybe construction. But the readings showed something far more controlled. The pulses were coming from 30 feet below the surface, shallow enough to detect clearly, but too deep for everyday activity. And they weren't chaotic. They followed a perfect rhythm, every 12 minutes to the second. On social media, tourists began sharing clips of pathways vibrating in short waves. A woman from Brazil recorded tiny stones bouncing in sync, as if pulled by some unseen force. At first, people thought it was a hoax, until the Jerusalem Post sent a reporter. She waited. Nothing happened for 2 hours. Then, at exactly 3:47 p.m., the same pulse hit again, stronger than before. But the rhythm was already changing, and no one knew why. At Hebrew University, the seismic team reviewed the latest data. Their instruments are sensitive enough to detect a truck on a distant road, but this wasn't a truck. Dr. Yal Hoffman pulled up the readings and froze. The pulses were not only real, they were increasing in frequency. 5 days ago, they hit every 15 minutes, then 14, then 13, now 12. A steady countdown with no natural pattern to explain it. She checked for equipment failure. Nothing. She compared 3 separate stations across the region. Every monitor showed the same repeating pulse, the same depth, the same east-west line. Even more alarming, a thermal scan picked up a warm patch under the mount, about 3 degrees hotter than the rock around it. Heat doesn't move like that, not in pulses. And the next scan revealed something even stranger.